Hello and welcome to the Lemonade series, turning life's lemons into lemonade for the soul. I'm here with Lynne, a creator of the Reality Formula. We're going to be talking about examples from our daily life and from our victim vocabulary series, which you may be subscribed to.
Yeah, we started out calling the Victim Vocabulary series, because when we started that series, we pretty much were taking basic words that come out of the vocabulary we use when we're in victim consciousness. There is an established vocabulary. And Jaquetta just mentioned one of the biggies in victim vocabulary, which is the it should be. You know, he should be different, she shouldn't do that, we shouldn't have to go through that. Should. And the reason why we call that part of the victim vocabulary is because it's a resistance. It's a way of expressing resistance. It's a way of saying things, this is not the way things should be, and things should be different. But the thing you'll notice about the way things are is they're the way they are, whether they should be or not. And in reality, there is no such place as shouldville. There is no such place except in our own mind, where we have this ideology, this sense of, or this image of the way we think it should be. And we can get people to sign up with us and join us in that idea that things should be different. The reality is they are what they are. So what do we do instead? And so Jaquetta, can you think of like some examples of times that you've used, or can you think of an example from life of?
Absolutely. I was just talking to you about a question that was recently sent in by email to us, and we are using it in our newsletter this month. And it is about poverty and why the 2% who make over $30,000 a year, and I don't know if these numbers are correct. Honestly, I've not really looked into the salaries of the world. But in this example, the question came, why are so many living in poverty? And, you know, if the world is a mirror and the guiding principles are true, then why are so many poor? Does it mean that because of the money that you make, or the amount of money that you make, or the number that you make per hour, does that define your happiness?
Yeah, and so a way to turn that around, because that's what we're looking for here, is instead of the thought they should make more money, they shouldn't be living or having to live on so little, there's this insinuation not only that they should be making more money in order to be happy, in order to be okay. There is also an insinuation that that's unacceptable, that it's not okay to be. But you know, another way to look at that is, instead of I should be making more, if it's me thinking that thought, it can be look how well I'm taken care of on $20,000 a year, or whatever it is. Look at all that I have, instead of I should have more. As soon as I go into I should have something different than what I have, then I move immediately out of gratitude. I move immediately into resistance. And from that place, I am truly in poverty from that place. On the other hand, there's the point, sort of to shore up the point that you were making. On the other hand, if I am focused on how much I have, no matter how little that is. I was watching a little kid on the beach yesterday play, and he had gathered all these tiny, tiny little shells, these fine ground shells on the beach there, and here in Florida. And he picked handfuls of them up, and he had dropped them in his bucket, and he was just running his hand through them, and like they were treasure, and to him they were treasure. And he was focused on how many of them there were, and look at all of this, look how it's everywhere you look. He was just overwhelmed with the abundance of this treasure he had found, what we focus on and see through eyes of abundance grows and becomes more. And so if you want more, then focus on the plenitude of what you have. And that is the opposite. That's the opposite. That is how we practice when we catch ourselves in should. How can I be grateful for the way this is, rather than fixated on how it's not the way it should be?
Absolutely. I love that. And I also want to just say that I think there is a valid place for should. And that is when we notice that we don't like the way that something is, we may be shoulding, but we're also thinking, what do I want instead? What would I like even better than this? To
Yeah.
really focus our desire on what we want. And that's what the guiding principles say, as we've talked about in our guiding principles series. What you focus on grows. So instead of focusing on what you don't want, that's pointing to what you do want. So you focus on that instead. And I think that's the rightful place of should, because I think when we get in this whole, I shouldn't think I should, that I shouldn't be in shouldville is not reality. When we find ourselves there and say, oh, okay,
How can I use this?